Hey, how's everybody doing? Hey, can I get a show of hands of everybody that considers themselves an entrepreneur here? Cool. Of everybody here, how many of you are working on hardware projects? Perfect. All right. So I think this will be right on target then. So what I just want to do is I'm not going to spend much time talking about my product. I just kind of want to show you how we kind of got where we did, what we learned along the way, and happy to answer any kind of other questions you might have even after the Q&A session if you want to get more involved. So as entrepreneurs, we always start companies, and the first thing is why. So I want to talk about why we did. So just our backgrounds, we both have started previous companies in the past. My co-founder started Rated All, Double Dutch. Double Dutch is still a functioning company making plenty of money. My past is in gaming and social gaming. I had a company called Diversion. We did stuff for Hollywood-themed games, and we both left those companies that we co-founded. We both had similar epiphanies that we just felt like the things we were working on didn't make any meaning, and they weren't really improving the world. And so we went off. We kind of started bootstrapping Sproutling as we were working at Wellness Effects and One Medical Group. And the reason that really motivated us to sort of have this epiphany was, all right, here we go, these kids. So as entrepreneurs, we see the world in a different lens, I think, a lot of times. And our experiences and our sort of view on the world is how we identify problems that we want to solve. And for me, it was this. Having kids, I realized, A, that social gaming probably wasn't improving the lives of my kids. Probably wouldn't be, something that like I would work every day really hard to do is to try and extract dollars out of them. Secondly, I think that it gave me a new perspective on how the space is and what kind of crap is really out there and complete lack of innovation. And if you really think about a lot of successful startups or a lot of successful companies and entrepreneurs in that case, they really find something kind of unique in the marketplace that's just really underserviced, and they build something to do to fix it or solve the problem. So what is Sproutling? So basically, we'd like to consider ourselves Nest for the nursery. Our focus is really on raising parenting IQ and delivering smart insights and peace of mind. And how we go about doing that, our first product is a wearable baby monitor. So it's a small sensor worn around the ankle. We have a smart charger, a mobile app, and data-driven insights. For us, it's really about data. I think there's a lot of products on the market that try and solve this safety issue, but in reality, there's so much more that we can learn. And so that was one of the key problems that we set out to solve. And so in essence, it tracks heart rate, skin temperature, sleeping position. We monitor the room's environment, light level, noise level, a bunch of things. We take all that data, we turn it into insights for parents. So yes, it's normal that your daughter wakes up 5 times a night. And more importantly, what we want to try and do is take a first-time parent, make them feel like a second-time parent. And this is by foresight. This is by using data that has been driven by your child specifically, your child's environment, and predict things like when they'll wake up from a nap and other things like that. So how do we go about starting this? And I think this is a really important thing. A lot of people start companies, they kind of get caught up in hype and different things, but in reality, when you start to bring a product to market or you think about doing something, I think it's really important about kind of how you get there. And for us, I think identifying the problem. So a lot of people, I don't think that they focus as much time on what problem they're solving, and you see this a lot in software. I think people hack on something, pivot until they solve a problem. But I think hardware, you can't afford to do that. I mean, there's capital costs. You have to bank a lot of time to get something to market. And so figuring this out is hugely, hugely important. For us, it was that existing baby monitors can't even tell you if your child's alive. So if you're sleeping, who's watching your, this video monitor? And in fact, watching this grainy black and white video is what inspired us. I would look at this thing. My daughter was supposed to wake up at 11:30, because she was hungry the last 5 nights in a row at 11:30. And now it's, midnight or later. And I look at this thing and I can't tell if she's breathing. And so I'd sneak in there. And it turned out that a lot of people have this problem. So my co-founder, I was telling him the story about how, I sneak into my daughter's room to see if she's breathing. He said, well, I do that too. And then as we kind of looked more and more, there was a lot of people having the exact same problem. In fact, Judd Apatow was on NPR not too long ago, and he said you don't know what it's like to be a parent until it's 2 in the morning and you're 4 inches away from your baby's face to see if they're breathing. So the more we went about it, the more we realized, hey, we're onto something here. And I would argue that the best products in the world take an existing behavior and make it suck less. And so I think there's lots of products that are inventing new behaviors. I think activity trackers to some degree are doing that. I think Twitter did that. I think there's a lot of things that kind of create and instill new behavior. It's a very hard thing to do. It takes a long time to do that. And I think the best products take an existing behavior like sneaking into your daughter's room to see if she's breathing and solve that for them. So I can just now look at my phone and see that her heart's beating and everything's okay. And so I would highly recommend that, as you start a company, really set out to figure out, am I solving an existing behavior? Are people sitting here writing how many steps they take a day or counting every calorie? And if it's more than 20% of the population, maybe it's a good idea to do something. So again, I can't press this upon you enough to make sure that you really lock this down. And this really kind of becomes your positioning statement later on. So after we figured out, yes, okay, we think we're onto something here. We want to know if our babies are breathing. But do other people want that? We're techies, and okay, we know a lot about Bluetooth Low Energy, and we're not worried about the radiation. But will other people be worried about? Will they want to put something onto their baby's ankle? Are they worried about RF? What are they worried about? And so before we even started the company, we interviewed 30 different parents. So we talked to a bunch of parents, and sure enough, we thought RF would be a big issue. Not at all. Turns out choking is a big issue. That was a big worry, is choking. And then also we found that a certain demographic, about maybe 10% of most of the people we interviewed had this sort of notion that I'm never using technology. I don't care, I don't need anything, any baby monitor. And so it's really, natural, like, Mother Nature's been taking care of this for a long time, so we don't need anything. So that's very clear to understand that there's a segment of the market like that. And so I would also argue that, nobody needs a curved TV. Unless you have curved walls in your house, then somebody's got your product for you. They're solving your problem. But otherwise, all this time we spent making these things paper thin, now, it's poking out. So I think it's important to, again, to really try and test the product market fit. Even after we established a company, took funding, we continue to talk to parents. And by now, I think we've talked to something like 98 different parents to continue this. And what's interesting is we started talking to parents in Asia and elsewhere, and what we found is that the #1 concern for the Chinese parents in Asia, RF radiation. So maybe one of the most polluted countries around, and very concerned about RF radiation. But the same note is that what we also found is that most of the people we talked to wouldn't even let their baby cry for more than a minute, and so they would very hover over, pick them up, very concerned about the safety of children. So those types of insights are really helpful, and as you build your company, they really sort of become sort of innate in your mindset about what your market's about. So the next thing is like, okay, we figured out a problem. We figured out that yes, people will pay for this. It's we've proven product market fit. The next thing is really, how big is this market? Who really cares about this? And so one thing I think we see a lot of this crowdfunding and Kickstarter projects is that we see that this is great for early adopters. People love it. I'm going to get every new tech gadget, but sort of crossing that chasm, if you will, trying to get beyond the early adopters. Like, this is something you should think about now. Are just tech parents going to buy this, or are real parents going to do that? And I think it's really important to understand that as well. Like making sure that you have a big enough market. And I've seen a lot of projects and stuff come by that really focused on some kind of very niche thing, and it's a cool idea. It solves a real problem. People need it. But if you're only going to sell to 1 million people, that might be a problem. The other thing is, so software, I actually should change this. I think software can scale to a $16 billion company. I think that's very clear now. But I think hardware, on the other hand, it's very hard to scale even to a $1 billion company. And so I think if you're having hardware, if you have a hardware startup, I think it's important to really focus on what your sort of ecosystem is going to be. How are you going to do, your next product, or what's your roadmap? And I think if anybody's trying to get funding and focus on this, you probably get a lot of things. We'll go on Kickstarter, see how well it does, then we'll look at it. But I think you need to think long term. I think you need to really see, how is this going to work together? How are we going to build a company? And there's very few single product, physical product companies out there. Sorry, I'm going really fast because I'm trying to stop soon. So what? I think the most important thing in, as you get farther, after you've answered those other questions, yes, there is product market fit, there's a market, I'm solving a real problem, and now technology is the first thing we all go to. Technology, I think, is the barrier to entry. I think good products, good companies focus on technology and product and user experience. I think the best companies loop in brand. And I'll say the West Coast is not very good at the brand things. They're not very good at retail, but I think a lot of entrepreneurs on the East Coast very in tune with brand. And I think it's really important to know that competitors come out there. We don't buy things based on price alone. We've done a lot of price testing in our research, and we found that parents are irrational about how much they'll spend for a device like this, especially if we throw a subscription model at them, where the subscription model is completely cheaper, but they would still rather pay substantially more. So that just shows that people do not compete on price, or people don't, I would say people aren't Spocks, trying to analyze a price. They have an emotional connection to the brand, an emotional connection to the product, and you have to really leverage that. And so I think as you start building a company from day one, you should be focused on brand. The very first thing we did was articulate what our brand is. And before we even started the industrial design, before we did anything, we really sat down, what are we and what are we not? And I think trying to be all to everybody is a bad idea. And so having sort of a clear idea of like, we're never going to do this. Like, we're going to build products for parents. We're not going to build things that look like kids' toys. There's companies that do that, but that's just not us. And differentiation is really important here. Understanding kind of what your ethos is. And when I look at brand, I don't look at it in sort of the traditional sort of marketing kind of angle. I look at it as this is what our company is all about. And it's really the ethos of your company. So, all right, I'm running over here. The next thing I'll say is test all assumptions. We tested pricing, we tested subscription models, and if anybody's raising money, you're going to get challenged on every decision you make in that business model. You want to make sure you test it. So we do a lot of stuff with Google AdWords. We run campaigns, we run landing page tests. We've tested price on 6,000 people. Figure it out. This is what you need to do. You need to come armed with evidence that yes, I know this price point works. Yes, I know how many people I can convert at this price point. I know that subscription model actually is better in this case, or maybe it's not. And then along the way, you're learning what keywords really convert for you, and it sort of helps you get started on digital marketing. For us, we didn't crowdfund. A lot of people would recommend you crowdfund. We didn't, because we knew that babies come at a certain date, and hardware projects crowdfunded are notoriously late. And by the time you get your product, your kid's already grown up. So for us, this is an important thing. It's an important thing that we had to really talk to investors about, is that this is why. This is why we don't want to do this. Also, it can hurt your brand. It's better to sort of under-promise and over-deliver. And I think you make big promises in crowdfunding campaigns because you want people to fund your project. So be careful of that. All right, hold on here. I'm almost done here. So we made a huge mistake outsourcing. I think the last speaker also had outsourcing issues, and we had a hell of a time with this. It really screwed us up. We worked with a company that had good pedigree, we vetted them pretty well, and so they worked with GoPro, a bunch of other companies, and but they never did wearables. In fact, very few people have done a wearable or a wearable for baby, and so we learned a lot of things with this. And I would highly recommend that if you think there's a silver bullet that some firm is going to design your product at this like amazing price, be careful of that, because you lose all that sort of learnings of how to build a device and stuff. So the last thing I want to just close out with is buzzwords and promises. There's a lot of just trends in East Coast, West Coast, but a lot of trends in investors' minds about hot topics. And so, like the Internet of Things, right? We're going to put sensors on everything, and it's really all the rage right now. And you look at wearables, Internet of Things, big data. And the thing is that those are all big labels, and they communicate big ideas, but they have zero expectation of what it means to add value. So what does it mean that wearables are hot right now, but how's that adding value? Internet of Things is hot right now, but how's that adding value to the consumer? So be very careful about labels. As an example, Nest is not called the Internet of Things thermostat, right? Really what it is it's basically replaced the sort of equivalent of a blinking light on a VCR for your thermostat. And what they've clearly done is articulated a clear return on investment. It's a smart learning thermostat. It is an Internet of Things device. It's got a big data platform. They have AI going on in the background, machine learning going on in the background, but they don't care. It's not an Internet of Things device. Nobody in the consumer market cares. And the last thing I'll say is that I think the real promise of Internet of Things, which I'm sure a lot of you are working on, is that until these devices are sort of contextually aware, until my shower can tell my my washer not to turn on because I go cold every time somebody's in the shower and you go on. Like, this is where we need to be at. And I think a lot of people are focused on building these big platforms and systems, but the average person, 80%, is probably not going to want to load up their mobile phone to program that, yeah, when I get home 15 minutes later, turn on the lights. I think that if you're building Internet of Things devices, think about how you can make these things smart and contextually aware. It's very hard, but this is where I think we need to go in order to sort of land the true value of Internet of Things. All right, thanks.
Thank you. So I'll take the first question. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your product at the technical level, how it works, what components you have, how they communicate to one another, sort of, at more, yeah.
Sure. So we're actually, I mean, if you think about it, we're building, I would say, 3 hardware products, right? So we have a smart charger. It's using resonance charging, which is a brand new technology. It uses RF to charge. The device can be, placed in the charger in any orientation. Transfers power over RF, so it's a little bit more reliable. It also has a temperature, humidity, microphone, speaker, embedded Linux system, if we can get it in our BOM, which maybe we can't. And it has a light pipe around it. And so that also has a BLE radio and Wi-Fi. So that acts as the bridge from the wearable, which is a silicone encased, silicone overmolding, by the way, is very hard, silicone overmolded encased electronics, and that's packed with a BTLE radio. It's packed with an RF receiver for the wireless charging. It has a light sensor for heart rate. It has a microcontroller to process all of this information, has an accelerometer, has an IR contactless temperature sensor. And then we have a band. And so if you think about it, there's a choking tube and small part toys and a bunch of rules around safety for kids. And so the band has to attach, not come off. And so that's yet another product. And we're basically molding a rubber to textiles. So it's a bit of a challenge. And then on top of that, where I think I have the most experience and feel the most confident about is the back end system. We use Go in the back end, where we've built our own time series database. We're having lots of data come in, if you can imagine. And the other thing about scaling internet is it's trivial these days. It's still hard, but trivial, because we know that users are driving that, and mobile is driving a lot of interactions. But once you have devices communicating, if you're not smart, if you can't scale those down, something might happen. You might have a software glitch and everything's reporting still and crashing your server. So you have to be very careful about how that all works. And then we have a mobile phone, a mobile app as well. So. And I'm happy to talk offline as well, too.
Hi, my name is Michael. Thanks for coming today, and appreciate your presentation. You talked about identifying problems in your presentation. I'm wondering if you consider the idea of developing a sensor to detect allergic reactions in children, especially things like food. Have you thought about those ideas, or are you aware of any ideas?
Yeah, I haven't yet. There's some companies working on it. One thing that we kind of chosen to do is focus on things that are clear problem points for a large audience right now. And so I think allergies are an important factor, but it's one of those things where understanding what the market is, like peanut allergies, it's severe, and it's life altering for families if something happens. And but I don't know how big the market is, and that also gets more into medical. So even though we're taking heart rate, nothing that we're doing requires FDA clearance for this type of thing. And for a company that's starting out, it's really important to pick your battles. And for us, as much as we want to do some other technologies that do require FDA approval, it's a risk that we can't afford to take right now. So.
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm working on the New York City Next Top Maker program, and I'm really curious what your experience was like switching from a Chinese manufacturer to finding someone closer to home, and how you went about doing it.
Yeah, so let me clarify. So we're launching our product in August. We're building it now. We're in CM selection now, and from day one, and Matt will attest, we've always said we're going to make this in the US. And so our strategy is, we're talking to 2 manufacturers, and surprisingly, a lot of the tier 1 manufacturers, they're getting much more demand for US capability, and they're building factories here. They want to do stuff here. Asia has always been a place where that was where their consumers or customers really wanted to put things, but for us, I think you know, China makes great products if you're at the right scale, you're at the right tier, you're making a lot of money. But if not, you know, it could be a problem. And I think parents especially have a negative connotation with made in China. And so for us from day one, it's a brand perspective of ours, is to try and make it in the US or at least in North America. So.
Time for one last one.
Hi, my name's Alex. Can you speak a little bit more about how you went about testing your pricing? You
Sure.
mentioned ads, but
Yeah, definitely. So what we did, even before we raised money, before my first pitch deck, we tested Google AdWords. We figured out which ads converted the most. And for our case, Smart Baby Monitor converted the most, had the most click-throughs. Then we put a landing page. And so it was a rudimentary value prop, a list of features, early picture of a prototype of the product, and a button that said buy it now for $1 price. And we used unbalanced.com. It'll let you do multivariate testing. And then we tested 12 different price points from basically $99 all the way up to $4.99. And then we also had one that was just click here for more info. And we figured out what the baseline conversion rate was for that. And so,
and then people would just get there and you didn't actually have the product?
right, and so we said, oh, it's coming soon. And would you like to sign up for it? So it would also lead gen for us. Yeah, and so they would click it. We'd record what price they did. We calculate the conversion, and then hopefully we got a lead gen from the email. And so surprisingly enough for our product, I'm happy to share it, is the price point that converted the most was $129. That converted at about 1.2% in this test. The second highest price point that converted was $3.99, and it converted at 0.9. So if you do the math, it's, you know, there's a lot of elasticity in price for these products. And what we also found after talking to some of those folks was that, you know, they equated quality with price. So if they felt like something was cost a lot less than it should be, they thought it might be cheap and not good. But this is just for us. Every market is different. And so maybe I should close. One last thing I want to say is, like, be weary of cliches, right? You know, like, don't scale fast, or, you know, premature optimization is evil. You know, like, not all cliches work for everybody. And so you get a lot of advice, and this is just what worked for us. And this is kind of the strategy we took. But I would make sure that, you know, no cliche is perfect, even if it's from your most favored blogger, you know, and you want to be just like them, but not, you know, it's not applicable to everything. So, all right, thanks so much.